So, story time. About 3 years and a week ago, give or take, a group of us went from Huntsville to Atlanta. Just to have some fun, meet some people, enjoy the show. And one of the young men, who was a little younger, a little more. I don't want to say he was homeschooled, but that will kind of give you the social sophistication of this young man. We're gonna call him Giles because he reminds Giles. He reminds me of the adorkability of the Anthony Stewart Head character from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but without, yeah. So I'm just gonna call him Giles. So he didn't think to bring money for food, along with all the other festivities. So we ended up going to eat with a group of people at the Marietta Diner. Fine place, highly recommend it. And afterward, so we get there, and he realizes he doesn't have money for food. And so I'm like, dude, like, don't worry, I got you, I can cover it. Um, and he says thanks, and then he proceeded to order the like second or third most expensive thing on the menu. Uh, he's the only person I know who will go into a diner and get he got the standing rack of lamb. Um, but the reason he ended up getting that was really interesting. He kept looking at things, and he took forever to order because he kept asking the waiter if things had alcohol in them. And cooking with alcohol is a very common practice. So he wouldn't have anything with gravy. He wouldn't have anything with all kinds of stuff. And then one of the people, so he was going to settle on a sandwich. And one of the people in our group jokingly reminded him that like bread rises because yeast ferments sugar into alcohols and releases carbon dioxide as byproduct. So then he decided he wouldn't get a sandwich either because there would be alcohol in the bread. And he was just taking this principle of the word of wisdom, and he was going way out into the middle of crazy town with it. And that's an important story because of recent readings. In Romans chapter 8, and again in Corinthians 11:10, somewhere around there. Oh, a cockroach on the ceiling. I'll have to get rid of that later. There is a place where Paul is counseling the people of Rome, and later the people of Corinth. Well, earlier the people of Corinth. I meant to go, I'll have to do another video. Some of the videos haven't been posting for weird reasons, but Pauline epistles are neat. I'll go into detail. And this section is, for me, one of the best elucidations of the word of wisdom. Paul basically says, between these chapters in Corinthians and in Romans, it's don't get anal about the commandments. The Jews and the Gentiles, the people of the church, of the Christians, are trying to navigate a really tricky spot between the law of Moses, which is fulfilled in Christ, and they don't keep the law of Moses with all the strictures that he used to. They don't keep the laws of kashrut with the strictures of the oral tradition, which aren't part of the actual law, but are part of the hedge around the law, so to speak. They don't necessarily keep the law of circumcision. But the thing which, one of the decisions that they're going to avoid meat which has been sacrificed to other idols, because that's a good thing, you sacrifice the meat to a god or whatever. And that's the same thing that actually happens, by the way, in kosher slaughterhouses and in halal slaughterhouses. Is there are prescriptions about how you slaughter the meat. One of the things you do is you say the name of God as you kill the cow. So that's the first thing, is that they're not supposed to kill meat that's been dedicated to another god, and that they're not supposed to eat things that are strangled, because that's just unkind and cruel. And the law of Moses in simplest form has a lot in it about compassion. It really does. If you don't think, because we remember the eye and the eye stuff, but there's a lot in there, and maybe I'll get to that if these things keep going. Anyway, And so Paul's counsel to the Romans is don't ask, don't tell. He says at one point, like, look, if somebody serves you meat, don't ask where it came from, right? Especially if you're a missionary or you're like a servant of the people. If somebody's giving you food, eat the food with praise and thanksgiving to God for the wonderful gift that it is. But if somebody gives you or if you're getting ready to eat the food and somebody's like, that was sacrificed to an idol, then, dude, maybe you shouldn't eat the food. But don't ask about it, okay? And then kind of the other side, like, don't tell people these things that they don't really need or want to know. And that's the part in Corinthians, I think. Then the part in Romans gets more into... I forgot, I just blanked out. Oh, and this is the other part of the word of wisdom thing. So there's first that, like, don't ask, right? Like, if you get something, you don't know where the meat's from, just eat it anyway and call it good. And the Lord's going to understand that you're not wanting to give offense, you're wanting to respect the people, you're wanting to be grateful for the sacrifice or the gift that they've given you. But in Romans, he says something that's really great, and he says that it's not worth eating meat. It's not worth making a point of some things. It's not worth possibly offending somebody, first off, but it's also not worth making a big deal out of pretty small things. At the same time, it's not worth risking offending someone to be right or to have your own freedom of choice. And the example he uses is, we have this one that you don't turn down the food. If somebody offers it to you, you don't need to ask where it came from. You don't need to look the gift horse in the mouth. But on the other hand, if you're out with people who don't eat meat, don't eat meat. If you're out with people who don't drink, don't drink. If a brother of mine, and this is, I wish I could pull up the actual reference, but I can't right now. If meat causeth my brother to stumble, then I will eat meat no more forever. And I think that's one of the things for which the word of wisdom is important. Right? We can get into all of the proscriptions of the word of wisdom. There's all the don'ts. Yes, there are the do's. The do's are great. But people always focus on the don'ts. And this is what I like about the don'ts. If you know people who have problems with caffeine addiction, or who are trying to, like, give up a bad habit, don't do the things that they have problems with around them. If you're out with people who think that caffeine is against the word of wisdom, don't drink caffeine. Respect their choices and their wishes, and don't make a contentious point about it. At the same time, don't make a contentious point about your own beliefs either, right? If you're with people who are drinking caffeine, don't castigate them for drinking caffeine if you're the other kind of person. That doesn't mean you necessarily need to drink caffeine with them, of course. It doesn't mean you need to drink alcohol with them. It doesn't mean that you need to smoke to chill out with the smokers. But don't judge people, and don't get offended by others' judgments. And that's where we were both in the wrong with the Giles thing. He was being dumb, and I love the guy, but, like, the fact that his meal cost more than 3 of ours put together was a little annoying, but I was offering him a gift, and he was accepting it. I shouldn't have judged him for his overzealousness. Overzealous is the wrong, that's a judgy word, for his zealousness. But he also shouldn't have been asking all of these stupid questions. And that's where so much comes in, is that there are good and bad things about both sides, right? There are health benefits to drinking wine. Do I drink wine? No. My flatmates do. My landlords do. My coworkers do. If I go out with them, though, I'm going to get water. Granted, I'm going to get water regardless of who I go out with, pretty much. If I'm out with friends who are vegetarians, I'm going to not eat meat. If I'm out with friends who eat meat, I'm going to eat meat. I'm not going to ask the waitress whether that meat was sacrificed in the name of the right God. So, there's my 2 cents. Have a good day.